Who am I? What am I doing with my life? Am I where I should be? Should I be living somewhere else? What do I want out of life? I am currently getting myself out of crisis mode. Hello, welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria Williamson, your host, and welcome to the podcast where we choose to look at life through a lens of resilience, presence, and gratitude so we can create our dream life. I feel like I have a quarterly crisis where every few months I start asking myself these questions, they start popping back into my head, and I start feeling like I don't know who I am at all. Am I the only one? And I kind of want to talk about this today. Like, what triggers this? What can make us feel like 1 minute we're on the right path, we're moving forward, we're doing amazing things, and then the next minute we are like taking 5 steps backward. We don't know what direction we're going. Should we be going left or right, north or south? We trip, we fall, and we're asking ourselves all these big life questions. Is it imposter syndrome? Is it comparison to other people? Is this a normal human experience? So I wanted to make this episode while I'm kind of in this crisis mode. I'll be honest, it's been a couple of days since I kind of thought dumped all my notes on this. So I am already feeling a bit better. And that's also why I wanted to share kind of what I like to do to get myself out of this crisis mode. And hopefully these things can be helpful to anyone out there who also goes through this cycle of not feeling confident or really sure of themselves or what they're doing. So the first concept I mentioned is imposter syndrome, and this is really when you start to feel like a fraud or a phony in terms of your abilities, or when you don't feel internally successful, even though objectively from the outside you may look super successful. A lot of people have talked about experiencing imposter syndrome. As soon as you start doing well in something and gaining success, you start questioning like, wait, do I even deserve this? And in a way, I think that this is something that a lot of people definitely face. I think it's also important to remember that with imposter syndrome, like you might be feeling super successful in certain areas and confident in certain areas, but then you may have other areas where you don't feel as successful or as confident. So even if you objectively from the outside have some success in this area, it might not be your area of comfortability. The second thing I mentioned was comparison. Is this stemmed from comparison of other people? And I feel like if you're on social media, you're going to compare yourself to other people. It's inevitable. When you see what other people are doing, you're naturally going to start wondering, should I be doing what they're doing? And the thing with social media I think we need to remember is to always keep at least one toe dipped in the reality pool of like, hey, not everything on social media is real. A lot of it is fake. And just because you see something on social media, it doesn't mean you know the actual person truly, right? You never know what people are going through. I saw something recently from an influencer that I follow who posted something honestly quite vulnerable, and it really made me think of like, there's been times where maybe I've compared myself to this person or even just had moments of like, oh, their life looks perfect. Come on, we know that it's not true. No one's life is perfect, and I do really appreciate when people share more vulnerably on social media because I think it helps break down the element of, someone being or seeming perfect, and ultimately you don't know what people are going through, and it's really important to remember that when dealing with comparison. And lastly, is this a normal human experience? I want to say yes. I think that anyone and everyone has the chance to experience imposter syndrome or confusion or the identity crisis at some point in your life. I know we've all heard of like the quarter life crisis. I definitely feel like it's a regular kind of cycle for me where I start to question, or there's maybe a lull, right? And I think it's important to also know that life has seasons and not everything is linear, and we'll get into that more later. But what are the solutions? right? We're in this crisis mode. We're not sure what we're doing. We feel maybe disconnected from our goals, from our sense of self, from our sense of success, and we're having a meltdown. So where do we go from here? I think the very first solution to this problem, and the thing that I do first, is I go internal. I stop what I'm doing. I force myself to stop thinking about everything, and I just go within. Maybe I meditate, maybe I journal, and I think that helps kind of get to the root of these questions. Although, really, we'll never have all the answers, right? And life isn't about predictability and having all the answers. And I think that's important to remember as well, that life is going to give you things that you weren't expecting, and you have to learn how to deal with them. And, no one is 100% confident all the time and all knowing, but I think journaling your thoughts can at least help give you some clarity on what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you want? What is it that's making you feel misaligned right now? Because I think sometimes we feel like we've got a clear direction, and then maybe we hang out with a friend and then we leave feeling like, oh, I don't feel really good after hanging out with this person. Like, wait, why is that? Right? And there's so many things in our life that can make us kind of feel misaligned. And we have to be really intentional about so much. How you spend your time, how you talk to yourself, how you think, who you spend your time with. It's all so imperative and important to becoming the person you want to be, truly, and imperative to your growth. So by going internal, it really helps me kind of take a step back and really evaluate what I'm feeling. And then I can ask myself, am I just feeling this out of fear? Because a lot of people, when they start to be successful at something, they have, this fear of messing it all up. Or their ego comes in, and our ego really wants to protect us from harm. And our ego doesn't like unpredictability because it can't plan for that. And so that's why we tend to be frustrated in situations that we can't control, or upset when things don't go our way, because it's our ego trying to kind of protect us from harm, or prove that we're perfect, prove that we're right, prove that we're smart enough, interesting enough, whatever it is. Our ego's kind of acting out of fear. And so when I ask myself, am I only asking these questions? Am I self-sabotaging in that way of asking these types of questions because I'm afraid? Because I'm afraid of going all in on myself, or starting something new for myself and following my dreams? And is it just I'm out of my comfort zone? And if that's the case, well, then we need to kind of push through that, or learn to push through that. So I mentioned the ego, and what I want to say about this is anytime you are thinking about the past or the future, okay, you're worrying about something that happened last week and you're frustrated at how you reacted to something, okay? Or you're really worried about the future, which is really what this crisis mode is. It's you not sure the direction of your life, right? And anytime we're kind of asking these big questions, it is ego driven because it takes us out of the present moment. And all we ever have is this exact moment. So what I do is I'll ask myself, okay, these big questions are coming in, my ego's going crazy, I'm feeling confused and uncertain and all of the things I just mentioned. So I ask myself, is anything wrong at this exact moment? Right now, is anything wrong? Me in my apartment recording this podcast, is anything wrong? No. In fact, I'm quite content. I enjoy recording podcasts. I think it's something that I love to do, and it's a passion of mine. So at this exact moment, I'm feeling good. Okay. Then don't think about anything else. And that's what Eckhart Tolle teaches, who is a super amazing spiritual teacher. I love listening to him speak, and he talks so well about the present moment and the ego and all of these concepts. So definitely check him out on YouTube or read his books. Highly recommend. And so with this kind of whole ego driven or focusing back in the present moment, something that really helps ground me is the belief that everything is working out. And I know that's something we often hear, but it's something I truly believe and I've really stepped into, that even when things happen that I don't expect or that seem bad in the moment, I tell myself, this happened for a reason. I am right where I need to be. And just telling myself that helps fade these questions to the background and helps them not be so heavy. And again, coming back to this exact moment, me recording, having a good time, talking to you guys, connecting with you, I'm exactly where I should be. Telling myself this and really truly believing it, it's led me to be so resilient. And you guys know I love resilience, but I've become so good at like getting out of crisis mode. Like it kind of just fades away, and within a day or two I'm like, okay, I'm back and I'm better, and I'm on the right path and I'm trudging forward. Okay, so try to really tune into the idea that it's all working for you. If you believe it to be true, it's all working for you. Another question I like to ask myself if I'm either in crisis mode or I'm just not sure about the direction that I want to go is I'll kind of revisit my intentions. And I'll ask myself, what are my intentions right now? What do I want out of life? What is something that I love that I want to make more time for? What is something that's missing from my life right now? What am I fostering well? There's so much you can go on this, but I think, and I talk about this in an episode about clarity, is when you have a really pure intention and you continue to take steps towards it, things will start to happen in your favor. And I've seen it happen in my own life, and it's kind of this thing, you have to believe it before you see it. So the last thing I'll say about intentions is this idea that, life is a mirror. And this is something I might do a whole episode on, but the life mirror essentially states that everything you put out will be reflected back to you. So when you are very pure in your intention and what you want, and again, journaling, going within is something that can really help you with this. But overall, when you have this pure intention and you commit yourself to just taking these little steps towards that thing, things will start to fall into place because you're putting out what you want to get back. So if you want good things to happen, you also have to put good energy out there. I think a lot of people get stuck in these cycles of just complaining, like, oh, this isn't working, bad things are always happening to me, this and that. And when that's the energy that you put out, that's what's going to keep happening. And so I think it's important to kind of shift from, okay, if I don't like what I'm seeing in the mirror, turn away from the mirror and decide what you actually want to put out. And you're kind of creating this new image in the mirror based on what you want to see from the world. Again, I could go more into detail on that, but I won't in this episode. But whatever it is that you want out of life, I think when we can drop its importance and say, you know what, it's okay that I'm feeling these feelings of fear or uncertainty, but I know in my heart this is what I want. So I'm just going to keep working towards that thing and keep showing up and allow things to fall into place for me. So as a last resort, something that I think can be helpful when we have these moments of crisis is getting some sort of validation. And I know that validation is kind of a tricky topic. I think I did a whole episode on validation. And obviously the goal is to kind of be confident in yourself and give yourself validation. But sometimes we need feedback from other people. And sometimes it can be really helpful. So the type of validation I think you should seek out as, again, a last resort. If you've done all these things, you've tried to drop the importance, you've tried to journal, you've tried to reflect, you've tried to just be present, and there's still things that are bothering you, or you're still feeling uncertain about the project you're working on, then you might need to get some feedback from people. So validation in the form of feedback from people we trust, I think, is a really good one. I guess I will reveal that I have been working on my very first coaching program called the Mindset Mastery Course. It's an 8-week coaching program that is designed to completely help transform your mindset and therefore your life. And it brings in a lot of life experiences that have helped transform my own life, psychology, and my experience from teaching. And I bring in all these different elements of who I am as a person, what has shaped me and really helped me transform my life. And one thing I'll say is it's scary to put something out there and to be like, okay, I'm shifting into this new venture, this new business that I'm creating for myself, because this is what I believe I'm being called to do. And it's scary to put yourself out there in a new way. And even me sitting here feeling like I need to explain, like, hey, I have a psychology degree, I've been teaching for 5 years, I have all this other life experience that makes me fit to be a coach, right? Or to be creating this coaching program. And I think that's kind of that need to prove yourself, right? And that's kind of acting out of ego, is like, oh, I need to prove that I'm good enough, or like, who am I to be creating this kind of course, And again, that's all the type of stuff we look at in the course of how to break down and recognize your thoughts and change your thought patterns. And I'm going to talk more in depth about the course next week, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. But one thing I've been doing is, now that I've created the bulk of the course, is I am getting feedback from people I trust, and they're going over it for me and giving me pointers and feedback. And that way, obviously in any sort of professional thing, I think it's great to get feedback. But that's also kind of a sense of validation of like, hey, do you think this is good enough? Or do you think it's ready? Or what could I improve? And it's vulnerable to do that, but I think it's also important. Another thing with this is, yes, you need to talk to people you trust, but also people who will be honest and maybe give you constructive criticism if you need it. I think it's important not to shy away from constructive criticism. I know that can sometimes feel like it's attacking your own character, but I promise you, getting feedback from people that is honest and real is so much better than someone just being like, yeah, it's great, love it, but they don't actually mean it. Like, how is that really helping you? So people you trust, people who will give you constructive criticism and their honest opinion, I think is super, super important. But I will say also in a way that is encouraging to you. You don't want people who are just going to give you honest feedback, but it's really negative and mean and putting you down and making you feel like you shouldn't be doing something, right? So you want to be very mindful of who you seek validation from. And I think it's also important that you might go to different people for different situations, right? I'm choosing to go to some close friends and family to share some of my things I've been working on. And in a professional setting, you might go to your boss, you might go to a mentor, you might go to a coach for different situations, or a therapist, right? So it's important to recognize like who you might want to get different kind of information from. And sometimes seeking validation could just be someone to vent to and say, hey, I don't even want your advice, but I just need to vent. Can you listen to me? Sometimes that can be super helpful, and it allows you to kind of speak it out loud and almost work it through yourself. I want to end off by reminding you that progress is not linear. Sometimes it feels like you take 2 steps forward, then 3 steps back, then a large leap into the unknown where you're caught by the wind and pushed completely sideways. And because of that, it's natural, I think, to have these kind of big questions come up, especially when things unexpectedly start to come your way. And again, accept where you are now, come back to the present moment. Everything is about presence. If you can come back to the present moment and truly be where you are and just take the positive steps that you can that day, that moment that you know will make you better tomorrow, you're on the right track. It's all about becoming like 1% better every day, right? What can I do today that tomorrow me will be proud of? Because you can't do everything. Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? I'm bringing in those cheesy things that we've all heard, but it's very true. And again, these are all things that have helped me be more resilient and bounce back from these identity crises. Remind yourself you are exactly where you're supposed to be. I truly believe that everything is working out for me for my highest good. And I mean, that's kind of the best mindset to have, in my opinion. Why would you want to believe anything else? Why would you want to believe that everything is working against you? Okay, last thing I want to say is when I start having these big feelings is I also always give myself like a day to feel it. Like if I'm just in my feels and I'm not sure and I'm feeling imposter syndrome or whatever it is, I give myself the grace to say, okay, today I'm going to feel it. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and choose to come back to presence and stop questioning and drop the importance of the thing and just allow myself to keep going. So that's all I have for you here. I hope you have a beautiful week. Keep an eye out for all the future information for the Mindset Mastery course. I'm so excited to be officially launching it very soon. It's exciting, it's scary, it's all of the things, but I really do feel like it's going to help a lot of people, and that's really my goal. So have a great week. I love you, and I will chat with you very soon.